In this video, we're going to be reviewing the Springfield 1911 Loaded. The Springfield Armory name goes way back in history, all the way back, in fact, to 1777 when George Washington first ordered the creation of the Springfield Armory for storage of ammunition. Later in 1794, they started manufacturing muskets all the way up to 1968 when the government closed it down. In 1974, however, Springfield Armory Incorporated was started in Illinois using the same name. There's a little nostalgia here for me reviewing the Springfield. The first 1911 I ever owned was a Springfield government model, so it was the basic model in stainless steel, and I put that through many different environments, and one of the things I've found over the years was it was by far the most reliable 1911 I've ever owned. So to me, it's nice to have one of these back in the collection again. Just looking real quick at some of the features of the gun. First off, let's look at weight. In this case, it comes in at 2 pounds 6 ounces, which is basically 38 ounces unloaded. Now fully loaded with an 8-round magazine, you're looking at around 2 pounds 14 ounces. So it is definitely a full-size handgun. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that it is built with forged stainless steel, both on the slide as well as the frame, which is a nice feature which I believe is incorporated, at least from the forged context, is incorporated with all of the Springfields produced today, which is one of the reasons why they have a very loyal following based upon these quality elements alone. Now, looking at some of the features specifically with the loaded model, hence the name, it comes with a lot of additional features that you would see beyond a standard A1 1911. The first feature includes the checkered box spring housing in the rear. You also have an extended beaver tail safety with a memory hump, which again you typically see on more upgraded 1911s. It also has an ambidextrous, and by the way, I've always safety checked every one of my guns. It also comes with an ambidextrous safety, so if you're a left-handed shooter, this is definitely something you're going to like. For me personally, I don't really care for the ambi safeties in 1911s, but it doesn't really bother me either. It's something I can always change out if we need to afterwards. It also comes with a skeletonized hammer as well as a speed trigger. Now the speed trigger, it's pretty nice. In fact, when I ran my Lyman gauge on the speed trigger, it comes in at a nice crisp 3 pounds 2 ounces, and for a stock manufactured 1911, that's an exceptionally light trigger pull, and I really like it. It's the only drawback with the trigger pull, however, is the reset. It's just a little creepy on the reset, as you can see there. And it also includes an over travel adjustment screw. But again, this is their speed trigger, and the speed trigger really is fantastic. That kind of a pull weight out of a production 1911 is pretty unusual from what I've seen, and really adds to the value of this gun. You're also going to see it comes with the Coca-Cola grips. It is also using the cross cannon designs that are synonymous with Springfield Armory. And they are also the 1/4-inch panel grips, which if you've ever seen any of my 1911 reviews before, you'll know that I prefer the full 1/4-inch grips on my full-size 1911s. Now moving on to the slide includes Novak style 3-dot sights, so you'll see them right here. You can get both the standard white dot as well as the night sight tritiums as well, but the nice thing is they are both dovetailed on both the front and the rear, making it easy to upgrade or change out your sights as needed. It also comes with a match grade forged barrel, which I believe is currently standard in all of the Springfield 1911 models. There are also front and back slide serrations. Again, I don't typically use the front slide serrations, but again, it's a feature that's on here, as well as something you can't see, which is a titanium firing pin. And it also comes standard with Springfield's lowered and flared ejection port. So a lot of good features on the gun itself. Now there's also an additional feature on here which I'm not too crazy about, and this has to deal with the guide rod. So if you're familiar with guide rods on 1911s, you'll know that the standard guide rod was enclosed within the slide and the frame. And then eventually they came up with 1-piece guide rods, and then they came up with 2-piece guide rods. And this is what you have here on the Springfield, is a 2-piece guide rod. And there are 3 problems I have with the 2-piece full-length guide rods. The first one is they can come loose, and I've seen them come loose before on people when they shoot them. The second thing is that people are not familiar on how to disassemble a 1911 with a 2-piece guide rod. Oftentimes they damage their 1911s trying to press down on the plug when it can't be pressed down because it's got a two-piece guide rod to move the bushing and disassemble the 1911. And the third piece just has to do with the fact that any gun, in my opinion, that requires a tool to field strip is not ready for field use. Pure and simple. Now, the good news is this is a pretty easy fix. So the first thing is when you get your 1911, it comes with 2 magazines and of course your takedown tool, which again bothers the hell out of me, but it is what it is. So in order to disassemble or field strip your 1911, you need to use this Allen wrench to loosen the first piece of the guide rod, and then you pull that out, and then you can do your standard field strip where you pop out. You've got a standard hold plug. Pull the slide back. Remove the pin, and then you're fully disassembled. Now you can see here one of the differences between a standard guide rod and a two-piece is, in this case, it is threaded here, and this is what threads back into the assembly. I personally don't care for this at all for all the reasons that we mentioned here. Now the good news is, if you ever want to change this out, if this prohibits you, for example, from buying a Springfield, you can easily buy a standard GI plug or standard GI guide rod, as well as a solid plug, and simply use that with your current spring and replace it without any gunsmithing, just simply reassembling. Or you can reassemble it with a one-piece guide rod by simply buying the guide rod using the existing spring as well as the plug. But again, this is something that shouldn't prohibit you from buying the Springfield, and I've actually got an additional video below linked to talking about the differences between these various different guide rods and how to quickly swap these out. But I've had some people say in the past that they will not buy one of these Springfields because of these two-piece guide rods, and I can understand why, but at the same time it's actually a very easy fix. You can easily pop this out, buy aftermarket, or buy additional guide rods and plugs, and then reassemble, and then you're back to where you should have been in the first place, in my opinion, with Springfields. So to quickly reassemble, again, standard 1911 assembly. And then once you are reassembled, you simply take the second part of the guide rod, you put it back in again, and then you take the Allen wrench and you screw it back to the pistol and tighten it up. And that's the simple assembly and disassembly of a two-piece guide rod. Again, I'm not a fan of the two-piece guide rods. One of the first things I'm going to do with this gun is I'm going to replace this with a standard GI guide rod and plug, just because that's what I prefer on my 1911 pistols. But again, it's an easy fix if you buy one of these. If you do, and you want to keep this two-piece in, just to make sure that you or anybody else that cleans this in the future realizes you cannot depress the two-piece guide rod in order to spin the bushing and do a standard disassembly. You need to have a tool to do this, which again is one of the reasons why I don't like this and I don't think it should be part of the gun. Now, some of the notable features not included: yes, it is a loaded, which means it includes a lot of the upgrades you would typically see on a 1911. A couple things it doesn't have, for example, it doesn't have the front strap checkering, and it doesn't have an additional undercutting of the trigger guard as well. So those are one of the things that you're going to miss on here as well. Some people like the front strap checkering, especially for controllability. Other people don't seem to mind. I have both. I prefer it on most of the guns that I shoot, but again, if I don't have it, that's okay as well. There are different Springfield variants as well on the 1911 side, so this is just one of them. This is the loaded model. You also have things called, for example, the Ronins, which I've done another review on here, which are the two-tone type Springfield models. And again, I did a review on this one in 10mm, which is linked below. You're also going to see versions like the Range Officer, or RO. It has a little bit different grips, as well as the front sight and guide rod are different. And that is another model that they offer. They also offer the TRP, which is, again, a little bit higher grade than the loaded model. And then you're going to see the basic model, which is the mil-spec, which is basically pretty close to a 1911 A1 without a lot of the features or added features you have in here. And a lot of people seem to like the nostalgia of the old 1911 A1s that come in the mil-spec model. And they typically come around $200, give or take, less than the loaded model. Now, when you buy this loaded model, you're going to come with two 7-round stainless magazines. Again, I prefer the 8-round magazines. These seem to work fine. So that's another thing you get with the handgun. Now, final observations. The first thing my recommendation is to people, especially if you're buying 1911s, is it's well worth buying the loaded model, the range officer models, even the TRPs, depending upon how much you want to spend. In the case with the loaded, you're talking about a version that costs a little over $200 more than the standard mil-spec model, which is the standard A1 type model. But you get all of these additional features we just discussed. And this is one of the reasons why I tell people it's well worth paying the few extra $100 to buy a model like the loaded, because a lot of these features are already on here for you. Another observation about the loaded model, which I like, is this is also perfect for foul weather environments. As I mentioned before, I grew up with a stainless Springfield model, and I carried this for many different hunting and foul weather situations. And stainless steel really is a great steel for these types of environments, especially due to the corrosion resistance. The one thing about this, however, it is a heavy carry gun for everyday use. So again, as we alluded to earlier, this weighs in around 38 ounces, but fully loaded, it's 2 pounds, 14 ounces. It's a heavy handgun, especially if you want to carry for everyday use. And in those situations, if you're going to be carrying a lot every day and you're going to be more weight sensitive, then you're going to probably want to buy things like the Dan Wesson Visual and other types of 1911s that have aluminum frames that can bring the weight down for you. And again, we have links to those below. These are also good, however, if they're heavy, to shooting more stout plus P loads. So if you're planning to shoot heavier loads, plus P type loads, good digest of those for your 1911s, this would be a good option for that as well. The other nice thing about these Springfields are, because they're made with forged stainless steel and good quality parts, these really will last a lifetime and something you can hand down within your family. So the only thing I would recommend beyond this would be just changing out the 2-piece guide rod. If you do have that on here, again, it's a pretty quick fix. I have some links below to the parts you can order quickly to be able to do that. All you have to do is field strip it down like I just showed you, insert the new guide rod components, and then you're good to go. So that's a review of the Springfield 1911 loaded. Again, another great option from Springfield Armory, and highly recommended. If you like this video or you like our channel, please subscribe on YouTube, and thanks for watching.